That's a lot to do, John.
I know. Start it off.
Unlike Art, I started from the opposite perspective. I felt that the King James was about the best translation. I held to that view for about 17 years. And then I studied textual criticism, got into the manuscripts. I've examined many of the best uncial manuscripts in the world firsthand. And I've had a chance to just spend hundreds of hours in this field. And I have since switched my views to a more reasoned, eclectic view, where I would agree with the text behind these modern translations. The fundamental principle of modern textual criticism is this: choose the reading which best explains the rise of the others. Now that involves at least two things. It involves looking at the external data. The external data, of course, includes the Greek manuscripts, the non-Greek manuscripts, the Latin, the Coptic, the Ethiopic, all the rest. And it also involves looking at church fathers, what these ancient commentators had to say about the Greek New Testament. That's external evidence. By choosing the best reading on external evidence, the earlier manuscripts would be preferred over the later ones. Even Dean Bergen himself acknowledged that. And so we want to look at the earliest manuscripts because you're going to have less time for copying between the time of the original till you get to those early copies. Where they agree, we have no collusion. It's very difficult to prove collusion because they disagree so often, and that would suggest that it goes back to the original. You also have geographical distribution, very important principle. If I have the same wording in manuscripts in Italy and in Carthage and in Antioch, all in the 2nd century, one in a church writer, one in a version, one in a Greek manuscript, and they all agree on the wording, it's very difficult for us to say, gee, somehow these guys got together and put this together by collusion. More than likely it goes back to a more common ancestor, namely the original text. And so you've got geographical distribution in the early centuries. That's the key. So you've got the external evidence. You've also got internal evidence, and this involves two elements. What is the scribe most likely to have done? Scribes do things unintentionally. Scribes do things intentionally. And one of the things we need to understand about these manuscripts is this: these were not done off of a typesetter. They were not done off of a Xerox machine. They were not done with computers. All of these manuscripts are handwritten. And consequently, a scribe comes along and he sees a manuscript in front of him. Here's a marginal note. And he looks at it and he says, "The angel of the Lord went down and stirred up the waters," John 5:4. Is this part of the original text, or was this a comment on it? How does he know? He always takes the safest route, and he includes it in the text the next time around. And that's how John 5:4 got into the Bible, for example. And so the text has grown with time, but these scribes, we have to look at what is the scribe most likely to do. They're more likely to add than to omit. And there's other reasons why they do that as well. Finally, you look at authorial usage. What is the author likely to have done? What is his context? What is his style? This kind of a thing. And you look at the text in light of that.
All right, now apply those things toward, some guys would say, and they listen to Don, and we've all complimented NASB on being a literal translation, which means it's the most accurate to what the Greek or Hebrew word was, just boom, give me the definition. Okay? Now, that's great, and I love to use that because I don't want anybody messing with my mind. But the fact is what also is the hindrance of that?
Well, in terms of the textual basis, the difference between New American Standard and NIV is minuscule. They have a difference in translation philosophy, not in terms of textual basis. In terms of the translation philosophy between the New King James and the New American Standard, it's not that great of a difference. Their difference is in terms of the text. So you've got these two issues at play here. What is the text, and what is the translation philosophy? Dynamic equivalence, I think Ken stated it quite well when he said dynamic equivalence is trying to start with the intention of the human author and get to the intention for the reader. So he understands exactly what that biblical author meant in the first place, whether it has the same words or not. Formal equivalence is if you got 17 words in Greek, you're going to have 17 words in English. And if you, actually the worst translation on the market is a strictly formal equivalent translation. It happens to be the New World Translation, where they're formally equivalent all across the board, except when it comes to their pet doctrines, like non-deity of Christ. And they say, gee, we're going to go to dynamic equivalence.
New World Translation is the Jehovah's Witness translation.
Right. So it's got the worst of both worlds, in other words.
Would you